Behold, the glorious Saryn Warframe, the best frame for all of the things, except for the things they are not the best at. Saryn is well known for her spores, which can spread through the map automatically to some degree, but is actually a frame that is more well suited to buffing her own weapons. Toxic Lash gives you toxin damage that is a separate instance of damage. That is, you will get toxin no matter what. It's elemental damage, but it doesn't combine with other elements on your weapon. And Spores has an augment that lets you buff your weapons with corrosive damage. This means that you can get a very large variety of different status types on a Saryn weapon, and especially if you have status well over 100%, you could fire one attack or swing with a weapon one time and potentially get 5, 6, 7 different status effects from one hit, while also having basic tools at your disposal. Miasma can be used as a sort of panic button ability. Common trend with a lot of Warframes, they have some ability that if there are just a lot of enemies, you can just hit the button and they all stop moving for a sec. And then Molt is sort of a utility. You can use the augment to heal. It removes status effects even without the augment. It makes you very fast. Saryn is probably the most surprising speed Warframe in the game because Molt has a speed value that rivals, or it's exactly the same as Volt's speed ability. The only difference is the duration is a lot worse. So you need a ton of energy to keep going fast, but you're as fast as Volt is, with maybe more incentive to build into a lot of strength actually. Since you have so many damage boosting abilities that are favorably affected by it. Toxic Lash, I'm looking at you. So Saryn is actually a Warframe of many talents. Surprisingly, even though she seems like she's just an Elite Sanctuary Onslaught AFK machine, she actually has a lot of different things that she can do rather well. Miasma can even be built as sort of a damage ability with its interesting scaling depending on what status effects are on enemies. So she's a Warframe that has kind of a more interactive way to do big burst damage. You don't just build for it and then hit the button. You do have to kind of play with her abilities a bit to achieve that, which is interesting if you like that. But then also has the option to be a powerful damage buffer in one of the more interesting ways that Warframe offers, by getting many different kinds of damage rather than just you have a huge damage number. She procs Toxin and can add Corrosive, and you have many different status types. Pretty good with Condition Overload. Among the better Condition Overload abusers by putting so many different statuses on stuff. Saryn is an interesting one. She doesn't really have single things that it's not that she's so much better at any given thing, like buffing her damage or building into a nuking ability. It's just that she does those things in kind of more, not necessarily more interesting to you, but certainly more interactive ways. She buffs damage by adding different status types, and she can remove status effects and heal and go fast using Molt, a sort of bizarre snakeskin ability instead. Miasma is a relatively unique way to do burst damage in its implementation, in that, you're building into different status types on enemies. The result is not necessarily that unique. Ultimately, her damage abilities still make enemies die. Miasma still does big burst damage, however interesting it is to build into it. And Molt is still just the speed ability that costs more energy and lasts for less time, if you view it that way. But the point is that if you want to interact with the Warframe's kit, Saryn has a somewhat basic package of tools that you can dig your teeth into a little bit more than a lot of similar frames. And her passive, to top it all off, is a glorious status duration buff, actually one of the worst stats in the current version of the game, but she certainly has a lot of abilities that play into it. So a Warframe that can be a lot of fun to spend a lot of your time with. Now I know what you must be thinking. Saryn is my favorite Warframe. Isn't that right?